Почему не работает?
Стой.
Что мы сделали?
Хор.
Ну-ка, сиди.
Сейчас сюда пульт сними же.
Никто не занял?
Да.
Третий. Кто-то занял, да? Третий.
А, кто-то, значит, тут занял?
Кто-то занял третий канал.
Английский кто может занять?
Так, английский же у вас там.
Все русский, если занят еще.
Да. Так, вот это проблема. Так.
Потом вот этот, я когда проверял, тоже вот, короче.
Смывали.
Вот говорю. Говорим. И тут резко заговорить на испанском, надо реле послушать. Хоп, говорим, продолжаем. Обратно флор. Если флор, он всегда на русский делает.
So good morning,
Говорим.
everybody. Welcome to Astana, to this special session of Sergardin ReligiousSites, organized by, of course, the government of Kazakhstan and United Nations Alliance of Civilization. And I have to praise the role of His Excellency, Mr. Maulen Asimbayev, because when we met in Cascais in Portugal last year on the Global Forum United Nations Alliance of Civilization, preparing this important summit, 8th summit of traditional religious leader, I proposed to my dear friend, His Excellency Mr. Asimbayev, why we didn't have a special session in a specific issue that are so much important for religious and for religious sites. So they agree, and thanks to the work of Kazakhstan, we have been able to organize this very important and a specific session. So my first word is for expressing my thanks to all of you that have agreed to take the floor and participate in this issue. We are going to exchange views, and at the end we try to together make some principle. We are not going to get any binding document today, but at the end I will distribute some draft principle that you come back and you will think about, in order that in the future we could all agree how to work together to protect these religious sites. So, my dear friends, excellencies, eminencies, distinguished guests, around the world, we are still witnessing a disturbing rise in terrorist attacks on religious sites, resulting in the death of innocent worshippers and the distortion of complete destruction of targeted sites. Such attacks, often perpetrated by terrorist groups or outright militias, in few instances, lone actors seek to strike at the very core of communities' sense of identity and belonging, and achieve a far deeper impact on the affected communities. Such vile acts instill fear and fuel anger and hatred and may lead to a vicious cycle of violence. The protection of religious sites, places of worship, and ensuring the safety of worshippers is a fundamental human right. Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights affirms the right of freedom of thought, conscience, and religion, noting that this right includes the right of individuals to manifest their religion and belief in teaching, practice, worship, and observance. Under the UN Charter, member states bear the primary responsibility to ensure security in their territory and to protect their civilians. In its resolution, A-Res-55-254, the United Nations General Assembly, I quote, call upon all states to exert their utmost effort to ensure that religious sites are fully respected in conformity with international standards and in accordance with their national legislation, and to adopt adequate measures aimed at preventing such acts of threat or violence, and invite relevant intergovernmental and non-intergovernmental organizations to contribute to those efforts by developing appropriate initiatives in this field. Protection of religious sites is addressed by member states through a variety of normative framework and policy instruments, including national security strategy and national legislation. As most of you are aware, my office developed the United Nations Plan of Action for Safeguarding Religious Sites in the aftermath of the terrorist attack on 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand in 2019. Pursuant to the mandate received from Secretary General, the United Nations Plan of Action to Safeguard Religious Sites in Unity and Solidarity for Safe and Peaceful Worship was launched on 12 September 2019. The plan of action is anchored in relevant General Assembly, Security Council, and Human Rights Council resolution, as well as key documents agreed upon by religious leaders. It provides a framework for action addressed to all relevant stakeholders to better prevent, prepare for, and respond to possible attacks against religious sites. Moreover, the plan encourages collaboration among the stakeholders to build trust, information sharing, partnership, and joint action. A presentation of the implementation of the plan will follow in the next segment of the program. Increasingly, the protection of religious sites has gained momentum within the international community. On 22 June 2023, the United Nations General Assembly adopted Resolution 77-298 on the 8th review of the United Nations Global Counter-Terrorism Strategy, calling upon member states to strengthen efforts to improve the security and protection of particularly vulnerable targets, including religious sites, processions, and convoys, as well as to enhance the resilience to terrorist attacks, in particular in the area of civil protection. End of the quote. Considering that religious sites are places where individuals or groups gather to pray, participate in ceremonies, or perform acts of devotion and meditation, they are normally found within designated structure, although some communities consider certain natural spaces to be sacred, elevating them to the status of religious site. Religious sites, both as physical premises and locations gathering individuals from one religious denomination, present significant symbolic value, particularly to terrorist groups who exploit religious division. As the United Nations Plan of Action to Safeguard Religious Sites notes, I quote, religious sites are representative of the history, social fabric, and tradition of people in every country and community all over the planet and must be fully respected as places of peace and harmony where worship feels safe to practice the ritual. They can be hosted in ancient or modern buildings located in densely populated urban areas or remote parts of the country. Outside areas reserved for worship and prayer, the same site may include nursery, educational structures, shelter for the homeless, and facility for various social and community outreach programs. The same religious site may be sacred to more than one faith community. In line with the General Assembly Resolution A-75-258, adopted in 2021, of promoting a culture of peace and tolerance to safeguard religious sites, in which the General Assembly strongly deplore attack against religious sites and condemn all acts of threat of violence, destruction, damage, or endangerment directed against religious sites, invite relevant stakeholders to support, as appropriate, the United Nations Plan of Action to Safeguard Religious Sites, a global conference involving all relevant stakeholders to spearhead political support for specific action to take place of action forward was convened in United Nations Alliance of Civilization Trade Global Forum in Cascais, Portugal, and many of today's participants were present there. Today, my dear friends, we gather again to listen to your recommendations and good practices in safeguarding religious sites. I will stop here and pass the floor to His Excellency, the Honorable Mr. Maulen Asimbayev, Chairman of the Senate of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. High Representative, Excellencies, distinguished participants and guests. First of all, on behalf of the Secretariat of the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, I am pleased to welcome you to our capital, Astana, and to the hospitable land of Kazakhstan. We are truly honored to host this special session of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations on the eve of the VIII Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to the UN Alliance of Civilizations and to High Representative Miguel Ángel Moratinos personally. Your strategic leadership, Your Excellency, and tireless efforts in advancing the global agenda of peace, understanding, and the preservation of religious sites and spiritual symbols are deeply appreciated. My thanks to you, Mr. Moratinos, and to your team for organizing this session as part of our Congress. Distinguished participants, it's a great honor for us to host this important international forum here in the heart of Eurasia on Kazakh soil. For centuries, our land has served as a bridge between East and West, a crossroads where diverse cultures and beliefs have met. Throughout our history, temples and spiritual sites of various religions have coexisted peacefully, and they remain an essential part of Kazakhstan's cultural heritage. Muslims, in particular, revere the mausoleums of Arstambab and Hoja Ahmed Yasawi, and visit the underground mosque of Beketata, among other sacred sites. In Almaty stands the Ascension Cathedral, one of the tallest wooden churches in the world, and a unique monument of history and architecture. In the North Kazakhstan region, near the unique Mariam Kol Lake, a Catholic spiritual center stands as a memorial to the Polish community deported to Kazakhstan during the repressions in the 1930s, who were saved from starvation in this very place. A statue of the Mother of God with fish, blessed by Pope John Paul II stands there as a symbol of gratitude. Every year, thousands of Jews from around the world visit the grave of Rabbi Levi Yitzhak Schneerson in Almaty, which is included in Kazakhstan's list of national heritage sites. And 20 years ago, Central Asia's largest synagogue, Beit Rachel Shabdat Lubavitch, was opened in Astana. Near Almaty, at Tamgalatas, unique Buddhist petroglyphs are images of Buddha with Sanskrit inscriptions dating back to the 12th to 18th centuries have been preserved. Today, Kazakhstan is home to over 100 ethnic groups and 18 religious confessions. We have nearly 4,000 places of worship, including mosques, Orthodox, Catholic, and Protestant churches, synagogues, Baha'i houses of worship, temples for followers of Krishna tradition, and Buddhist temples. All of these sacred sites are part of our people's history and represent an invaluable spiritual and cultural heritage. We attach great importance to their preservation and protection, regardless of religious affiliation. The coexistence of these temples reflects the very essence of Kazakh national culture and identity: respect, tolerance, openness, and readiness for dialogue. As Pope Francis said during his visit to Kazakhstan in 2022, in Kazakhstan, many histories, ideas, beliefs, and hopes have met together. As Kazakhstan's President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev put it, the people of Kazakhstan have absorbed the traditions of various civilizations and religions, along with the spirit of tolerance and openness. Therefore, the principle of unity in diversity is fundamental to us. Dear session participants, Kazakhstan strongly supports the 2023 UN General Assembly resolution on interfaith dialogue and countering hate speech, as well as the UN Plan of Action to safeguard religious sites. We are firmly convinced that protecting religious sites is more than just a matter of physical security or legal regulation. It is a profound challenge that requires a multifaceted, coordinated, and thoughtful approach. It begins not just with laws, but with a culture of dialogue, with the ability to listen to and respect one another, and with the readiness to see diversity as a source of strength, not a threat. We believe that mutual trust and understanding among peoples and faiths forms the foundation upon which we must build lasting peace in the 21st century. This is why, since gaining independence, Kazakhstan has consistently worked to strengthen unity, understanding, and interfaith harmony, both within our country and on the international stage. It was on this historical, spiritual, and political foundation that the idea for the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions was born in 2003. This was one of the first forums of the 21st century to bring together leaders of Islam, Christian denominations, Judaism, Buddhism, Hinduism, Shintoism, and other religions on a single platform. The Congress is intended to demonstrate the peaceful and constructive essence of all world religions. Around the same time, in 2005, the Alliance of Civilizations was established under the auspices of the UN to strengthen interreligious and intercultural dialogue, mutual understanding, and cooperation. The Congress and the Alliance share common goals and values. Both emerged in response to rising mistrust, growing tension, and polarization within the global community. We highly value our long-standing and constructive partnership and cooperation with the UN Alliance of Civilizations. Kazakhstan shares the alliance strategic vision, which is focused on fostering mutual understanding between cultures, countering extremism and terrorism, and preventing conflicts based on religious, racial, and ethnic differences. We are proud that this special session has brought together the Alliance of Civilizations and the Congress in a joint effort for peace and harmony. Distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, this year the international community marks two significant dates: the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II and the 8th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. Despite the tragic lessons of the 20th century and our long journey toward peace, we once again face destructive wars and conflicts, rising polarization and growing mistrust. We see forces exploiting these tensions to spread radical ideologies, incite xenophobia, and amplify hate speech. All of this is amplified by the unprecedented capabilities of modern digital technologies. In these circumstances, protecting religious sites remains crucial. But unfortunately, the global situation also compels us to speak about the protection of human lives. We watch with deep concern the devastating conflicts in Ukraine, Gaza, and other parts of the world. The pain and suffering of civilians touch the hearts of people of all faiths. At a time when humanity is confronted with violence, hatred, and cruelty, it's vital to remember the universal message of all religions: compassion, mercy, and humanity. Today, more than ever, we must listen to the call to love our neighbor, regardless of their nationality, religion, and beliefs. The world needs peace now more than ever. Kazakhstan consistently advocates for the peaceful resolution of conflicts, the protection of civilians, and the unconditional observance of international humanitarian law. We believe that regardless of country, race, faith, or culture, we are all united by the universal aspirations for peace and security, quality education, and care for family, community, and spiritual values. This is true source of solidarity and hope for humankind. We believe it's critical for all constructive forces to unite. As President Tokayev has said, the world needs a new global movement for peace. I am confident that through our joint efforts, the Alliance of Civilizations and the Congress will contribute to concrete steps in this direction. I am sure the ideas and thoughts shared here will be reflected in concrete actions for the benefit of peace and our shared future. I wish all participants fruitful discussions and successful implementation of the decisions we reach together. Thank you.
So now I'll give the floor to the Director of the United Nations Alliance of Civilization, Mrs. Nihalsat, to make the presentation.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency, Mr. Miguel Moratinos, Your Excellency, the Honorable Mr. Monan Ashimbayev. Thank you very much for giving me the floor. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, eminencies and distinguished guests, and I'm very pleased to be giving you a very brief presentation of where we are regarding the United Nations Plan of Action for Safeguarding Religious Sites, which was developed by the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations in 2019, and it was launched in 2019. Basically, this gathering today is a follow-up of part of the implementation of the action plan, because we actually convened a global conference in Cascais, Portugal, which was recommended by the plan by the plan when it was launched. So, but allow me first to say a few words, since the Senate of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan is leading the organization and of the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. We might as well want to think a little bit about constitutions and the laws governing certain legislations when it comes to the protection of religious sites. As the High Representative for the Alliance of Civilizations just mentioned in his remarks, that the main responsibility for the protection of religious sites and safeguarding the safety of the worshippers primarily lies with member states. Almost the majority of constitutions contain articles that ensure the freedom of religion or belief. They also contain clauses on how the state approaches religious freedom. Guided by these statements, parliaments are tasked with ironing out the details of how religions or beliefs present within the state are integrated into or protected by the legislative framework of the state, which may be secular and or influenced by religion or belief. And although the members of parliament and religious leaders have different mandates, they share the common goal of serving their communities and promoting their well-being. They can be allies in our common cause for social justice and peaceful coexistence. Now, moving to the UN Plan of Action to Safeguard Religious Sites, which was developed by UNAOC, the plan provides a framework for action to better prevent, prepare, and respond to possible attacks against religious sites. It also encourages collaboration among stakeholders to build trust, information sharing, partnership, and joint action. And that's why we are gathered here today, because we have the various stakeholders which are responsible and have a responsibility for the protection of religious sites. The plan recommends, among other actions, strengthening intercultural and interfaith dialogue as a tool contributing to promoting respect, diversity, and religious tolerance. And that's why United Nations Alliance of Civilization continues to maintain a leading role within the UN system in this area through facilitating a global platform of faith actors and cultural icons that is widely acknowledged for their valuable contribution to strengthening understanding and dialogue and to address religious bigotry. If we go to the slide that we have in this short presentation, part of the recommendations also, in addition to strengthening intercultural and interreligious dialogue, was mapping of religious sites in several countries. We have selected Sweden, and we communicated with the government of Sweden, who approved or agreed to have a mapping of their religious sites. This brings me also to the next slide, where the results of the mapping exercise that we have in Sweden, where we tracked 4,438 religious sites, representing 13 different denominations. The mapping exercise is work in progress in Argentina. We've had some hiccups there, but then I think that the map is completed in Argentina, mapping religious sites there, but it's not yet public, and it's not yet posted online where it is made accessible in publicly. The mapping exercise was done and developed jointly with the United Nations Operational Satellite Applications Program, or the UNOSAT. It is quite an expensive exercise, and that's why we are kind of slow in moving forward with other countries, because of the shortage and the scarcity of the financial resources to do so. And we hope that we will be able to continue the mapping of the religious sites in other countries as we try to mobilize other member states to fund the mapping of religious exercise. The second recommendation of the plan of action was a convening of a global conference to safeguard religious sites. And as I said earlier, I mentioned briefly that we did convene the first global conference on safeguarding religious sites last November, when we organized our 10th Global Forum in Cascais in Portugal. And we addressed there this critical role that various stakeholders must play in safeguarding religious sites. And that's why we had many representations from member states, from religious leaders, from civil society organizations. We had 21 member states take part in that global conference. We had 16 religious leaders and faith-based organizations representing the different faith denominations, and we had 7 international organizations participate in the conference, in addition to civil society representatives. I see also that there were many of those who came and participated in our conference are present here in this room. As I mentioned, the Honorable Mr. Moulay Hashimbayev and his virtue, Allah Shakur Pashazada, the chairman of the caucus of Muslims board, also was addressing the opening session in Cascais in Portugal. And also we had a representation from the office of His Eminence, the Grand Mufti of Egypt, participate in the conference. Moving to the communications campaign, which was also part of the recommendations of the plan. The communications plan is still ongoing, and I think it will continue. We encourage the participation of all the stakeholders in the communication plan. We have so far, after we've developed a hashtag for safe worship, we had 6.2 million in total social media reach and 2.1 million impressions for posts across major platforms. We continue to strengthen that communications campaign, and we encourage others as well to be taking part in it. I think that this brings me to the end of this presentation, to briefing you on where we stand with the implementation of the plan of action. We continue our work, and I think that we all hope that this follow-up session today is going to mobilize the implementation of the plan, take it further, and we come up with concrete recommendations again on how to move forward. We look forward to listening also and benefiting from your good practices in your own denomination and in your own and member states who have good practices in the protection of religious sites, to benefit from that, take it as recommendations and put it as the next phase of the implementation of the action plan. I thank you very much.
Thank you, Nihal. And before the departure of our dear friend, you know, Excellency Mr. Maulana, have a lot of engagement and starting the participation and the speeches of all of you. So let me thank you again, and well, we'll see you tomorrow for sure. And again, thank you for being with us and convening this special meeting. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So we are going to start the intervention. We have make a list. It has been distributed, and so I'm going to give the floor. The first, speaker will be His Eminence Dr. Nazir Mohammed Ayad, Grand Mufti of Egypt, President of the General Secretariat for Fatwa Authorities Worldwide. You have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وعلى آله وصحبه
The most
الكريمة أصحاب المعالي والمكارم السادة العلماء
Praise to be God, Lord of the worlds, and may peace and blessings be upon our Master and Patron Muhammad and upon his family and companions altogether. Your Excellencies, esteemed scholars, representatives of religions, peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
And so at the beginning of this speech, it gives me great pleasure to extend my highest expressions of gratitude and appreciation to the leadership and people of the Republic of Kazakhstan in recognition of their kind invitation to participate in the events of this blessed session. This session represents a continuation of Kazakhstan's diligent efforts in building cultural and religious bridges, and our meeting today in this extraordinary session of the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations under the theme Safeguarding of Religious Sites comes at a critical time when the world faces rapid challenges targeting humanity's common heritage, especially religious symbols that embody the spiritual and cultural identity of nations. And this makes this session a global platform for uniting efforts and affirming responsibility to protect these sites and safeguard their sanctity, thereby reinforcing the collective message of peace and tolerance shared by all religions. We ask Almighty God to bless all our efforts with success. Distinguished colleagues, religious sites are part of humanity's rich heritage, embodying eternal human and religious values. They represent human and religious civilizations across history, and therefore it's necessary to preserve them and pass them on future generations, just as our ancestors preserved and passed them down through the ages. And from this deep awareness of this value and of these sites, Islamic law has provided explicit protection for religious sites. God Almighty says, "And were it not that God repels people, some by means of others, churches, synagogues, monasteries, and mosques, wherein the name of God is much mentioned." And the meaning is clear. Were it not for God's protection, people's places of worship in every era would have been destroyed. Churches in the time of Moses, synagogues in the time of Jesus, and mosques in the time of Muhammad. And moreover, Islam has prohibited the destruction of places of worship, not only in times of peace, but also during times of war. It was reported from Abu Bakr al-Siddiq that he said, "Do not be treacherous, do not deceive, do not cowardly, and do not corrupt the land. Do not burn or cut down palm trees, do not slaughter livestock, and do not destroy places of worship." And without doubt, wars are among the gravest threats to religious sites, as they bring widespread destruction with devastating weapons. And frequently, when an enemy occupies a city, it burns or destroys it. In modern times, these risks have increased due to bombs, aircraft, heavy artillery, missiles, which cause massive damage to cities and villages. Statistics from World War II show that thousands of historical buildings were destroyed. In addition to war-related destruction, lack of awareness among citizens about the importance of cultural and architectural heritage also contributes to harmful practices against this enduring legacy. And the danger increases when such ignorance is combined with extremist ideologies, leading to disregard for the civilization and human value of this great heritage. Distinguished participants, we reject any hostile acts directed against historical monuments of or works of art that constitute the cultural and spiritual heritage of peoples. Foremost among these are places of worship, which are cornerstone of building humanity's cultural and spiritual heritage. In this context, we reject and condemn all forms of violence, sabotage, and destruction perpetrated by the Zionist occupation in Palestine from the holy city of Jerusalem and the demolition of its landmarks to the blatant violation today in Gaza and the West Bank against the sanctity of religious and historical sites. We ask bitterly, where is international law regarding this deliberate destruction of religious and historical sites? Where is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Where is UNESCO's law? Where are the Geneva Convention on the protection of heritage and religious sites? We affirm that the authority of the Zionist entity as an occupying power with no legitimate right to make any changes to religious or historical sites in Palestine, whether through demolition, Judaization, or destruction. It disregards values, ignores the voice of justice, and shows no fear of law or respect for divine principles. From this responsibility, our vision for protecting religious sites is embodied in the necessity of enhancing interfaith dialogue and cooperation, the importance of strengthening values of peace and tolerance, and all forms of violence and extremism targeting these sites, and the need to activate relevant international laws. It's also essential to strengthen the role of religious communities in building global peace and protecting religious heritage. We also call for motivating communities to work toward protecting planet Earth and religious sites, integrating religious values into peace initiatives, and enhancing cooperation among religious institutions and organizations in different countries to confront urgent global challenges, foremost of which is the protection of religious sites. In this framework, we commend the pioneering efforts exerted by Egypt in protecting human heritage in general, and these sites have received great care as an integral part of humanity's memories and civilizational identity, and this has been achieved through sincere and extensive efforts led by His Excellency President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi, who launched many national initiatives to develop these religious and historical sites. And also, this Egyptian experience has become an inspiring model in the field of protecting human heritage and preserving eternal religious values. And these efforts have not been limited to protecting heritage within Egypt's borders, but have extended internationally through supporting UN initiatives for the preservation of human heritage and providing technical expertise in restoration and rehabilitation projects after wars and disasters. And this reflects Egypt's firm belief in its pioneer role. In conclusion, I hope that this meeting will be a starting point towards strengthening effective tools for the protection of religious sites and preserving them from anything that may harm them now or in the future. Thank you so much for your attention. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you.
Спасибо большое. Его Высокопресвященство господин Назир Мухаммед Аят за такие теплые слова. Сейчас я бы хотел передать слово его добродетелю, шейх Уль-Исламу Аллах Шукуру Пашазаде. Пожалуйста, слово предоставляется вам.
Sivilizasyalar Alyansı'nın Ali nümayəndəsi, zat-ı aliləri, möhtərəm Miguel Angel Maratın ilk cənabları, Bəşəriyyət naminə diyaloqunun nailiyyətləri ilə bizi ruhlandıran Sivilizasyalar Alyansı'nın ve müteber Astana kurultaylarının 2-10 illikten artık değerli faaliyetlerinin her birimiz.
So, for more than distinguished participants of the following event, for more than 2 decades, we have witnessed the fruitful activities of both the United Nations Alliance of Civilization and the highly esteemed Astana Congresses, which inspire us with their achievements in promoting dialogue for the sake of humanity. I have the honor to warmly greet all of you at today's special joint session, which has become the result of our joint cooperation, and I pray to the Almighty Creator to grant success to the work of our gathering. I sincerely support the initiative to hold today's meeting and emphasize its exceptionally important significance in a polarized world faced with a real nuclear threat, where manifestation of xenophobia and calls for hatred, inciting conflicts on national, religious, and racial grounds are growing. And the restoration of trust on a global scale is a necessary condition for building a just and prosperous future. In addressing global problems related to peace and the future, the ideas of peaceful coexistence, a culture of mutual understanding, dialogue, and cooperation between civilizations and religions, and multiculturalism acquire special importance. And as the President of the Republic of Azerbaijan, Mr. Ilham Aliyev, has noted that inter-civilization and intercultural dialogue is one of the most urgent tasks of our time, and it's noteworthy that the Alliance of Civilization under the auspices of the UN, with a history already spanning 80 years, has always paid particular attention to this important direction. So, distinguished participants, modern challenges present humanity with serious trials. As a result of the spread of the ideology of hatred, we observe increasing cases of insult to the sacred values and symbols of religions and the abuse of the name of religion for political purposes. We strongly condemn any manifestation of radicalism and xenophobia under the guise of freedom of expression or religious affiliation, especially acts of terror and vandalism directed against holy sites, religious objects, cultural heritage, sites, and monuments. We must more actively resist those who, for provocative and political purposes, abuse the name of religions, whose very foundation lies in universal human values, and we must protest against any disrespect towards religious shrines, symbols, and figures anywhere in the world, as well as against calls for hatred leading to national and religious conflicts. We call for an end to the bloody clashes that are troubling the world today and causing the death of innocent people in the Middle East, in the Gaza Strip. And we call for weapons to fall silent for the destruction of material and spiritual heritage. As you know, Azerbaijan restored its internationally recognized territorial integrity and sovereignty precisely in accordance with the UN Charter and the UN Security Council resolution. Today, Azerbaijani state is restoring sites and villages in the liberated territories, reviving and reconstructing our national, religious, and spiritual heritage, which was subjected to destruction and as a result of acts of vandalism. Distinguished participants of the event, as a religious leader, I'm convinced that in order to prevent attempts at a clash of civilization and to solve global problems alongside the norms of international law, an appeal to universal moral values is necessary. We discussed this in detail last year at the anniversary forum of the UN Alliance of Civilization in Casais and emphasized that the name has come to establish an advisory body of religious leaders. In this regard, I view today's joint special meeting of the Alliance of Civilization and the Astana Congress, which, thanks to their rich and valuable experience, have formed as effective platforms for dialogue and cooperation, and as a highly successful step. And I wish them success and pray to the Almighty for the blessing of our efforts for the sake of humanity. And may the Almighty Creator protect the earth and humanity. Amen.
Thank you very much for your very warm words. Now I move to Dr. Mitchell Abt, Secretary General of the Middle East Council of Churches. You have the floor.
شكرا سوف أتكلم بالعربية لأن
So, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to provide my speech in Arab language. This is my mother tongue, so I can be frank. I can frankly speak in my language. I'd like to talk about the I have a huge number of articles in English languages, so I will send them to you later. And as they say, I don't think that any region in the world for a huge number of years so we see that we have I don't repeat the topics of my colleagues because this is the same context. That's why I just want to say that I totally agree with my colleagues what was mentioned before. I'd like to talk about the destruction of religious sites. Firstly, is about the knowledge, is about the cognitive part of it. In spite of religion and in spite of monastic religion or any other, we had a conference in December of 2021 together with the Church Soviet in Iraq, and we saw that in Iraq we have 16 religions, and they can be monistic or traditional. And what I'd like to say is that community always had various types of options in terms of communication with Almighty, in terms of getting knowledge from Him. In Christianity, it's can be the same because it always there is a various types of options in terms of that. So that's why when we see the ancient monastic religions, we always evolve. We can't distract them. We have to see through the cognitive point of view in terms of knowledge of Almighty. We have to understand Almighty's view and our attempts on how to understand Him within the following context: cognitive aspect. In spite of any religion, religion is considered as the form of knowledge of Almighty. So for me, it can be considered as the cognitive process. So that's why we have to observe it. We have to cover it within the knowledge of ours. Maybe human created all these religions and all these forms of knowledge in order to understand Almighty. And in different civilizations, they have been creating different religions, different faiths, different forms of knowledge. And for now, we have the opportunity to unite it all, to gather it all. Secondly, as for destruction of religion sites, I was a witness of cruel wars in Middle East, Syria, Kurds, Yazid, and any other minorities within the Middle East. They suffered. I saw how all their sites were distracted, and religion sites are considered as the part of our history, and that's why there is need to save and to preserve the memory of ours, because sites are considered as the memories of people. So that's why we can't distract our memory. We have to preserve it. We have a huge number of religions. We have a huge amount of memory. So, and all this shows that we have the faith towards Almighty. Memories are vital. This is the part of within the way of education, within the way of knowledge. Also, as for distractions, they are closely connected with attacks. It can be a direct attack, or because of the military actions, maybe because of the terroristic acts, maybe because of the governmental efforts. And countries choose some of the various types of reasons. For example, there is sites of thousands of, they are really old, and also there is a connection between religions. Between religions, we have to have respect, and despite of different people, different religions, we have to respect each other. We have to have communication, bonds, strong links, and in spite of what you think or which particular religion you have, which particular faith you have, your values, we have to respect it. We always have to consider it. And this approach, in terms of, you know that in some countries within the Middle East, some of the sites are fully destructed, and it means that this is all as the result of that we are lack of knowledge, we have aggression, and we have some actions which is called war against satanization. Because it leads to some other distractions, so that's why we have to battle against it. All for infrastructural issue, because there is always different type of reasons. As a reason, we call it as the destruction of culture or genocide. All these are considered as the destructive part of culture that some of the groups has. It can be groups, it can be countries, call it as you wish. We see it right now. We see it in different types of Middle East, in Lebanon and in other neighboring countries. And for now, in spite of that, we have some achievements in terms of religious sites with the help of legislation, with the help of amendments, and maybe we have to put some new efforts in order to change the laws and in order to preserve the sovereignty of these countries. In my own research, I mentioned about I provided my concerns about the Syria and religious sites in that particular region, and I made some pictures of the results as a result of destruction of sites. All what was mentioned, all your suggestions are really vital. We have to have declaration, we have to have convention in terms of safeguarding the religious sites in order to make it the part of common community, common society that we have to spread around the world, that we have to spread around the religious leaders, religious cultures, in order to preserve our culture. Thank you so much for your attention.
Спасибо большое. Сейчас я хочу передать слово господину Мухаммеду Абдель-Саламу. Спасибо большое, мой дорогой друг.
أحييكم جميعا وأشكر لكم عقد هذه الجلسة الخاصة وهو شكر مزدوج أولا على فرصة.
So, ladies and gentlemen, at our meeting today, I greet you once again on this blessed land, a land of openness and communication. And this is another step on the path that has become a hallmark of our journey together toward a better tomorrow. Yeah, we have a huge number. We are united by a common goal to seek harmony in our diverse world. So the following topic so our world with its variety of cultures, experiences, languages, identities, and rich plurality. And indeed, the efforts of the Republic of Kazakhstan have become a prominent sign in bringing civilization and religion closer together, especially through dialogue between religions, the leadership of President Tokayev, His Excellency Mr. Maulana Shimbayev, Chairman of the Senate. And now where is this more evident than in Astana, the Kazakh capital, hosting for the 8th time this Congress that brings together religious leaders and prominent intellectuals, a journey that has now lasted nearly a quarter of a century. Our vision of a dialogue in this distinguished forum goes far beyond mere words. It's about establishing a culture of true exchange. The aim of interfaith dialogue is not limited to rituals or formalities, but is rooted in courage and determination, creating a balanced vision of the self and of the other. And I so I'm confident that I will receive all speeches of my colleagues that were mentioned before, because this is a really vital topics, and we also pay a huge attention to that. And indeed, the following attention goes from two parts. First, because the last point that were in our document that were signed with Pope Francis in 2022. It was signed by Sheikh Al-Khayyam. And thank you so much for Pope Francis. And the following point that was added about the safeguarding of religious sites is considered as the honor, and this has to be the most important part in every document, and attack on sites are considered as the violation. And the following point was the last within the Brotherhood documentation, and I brought it to Vatican. It was observed with Pope Francis, and Mr. Iman said that today we see on how we see all that bad conditions in Syria, Iraq, and I'd like to provide the following point to Pope Francis, and he told me that we have to make it to the document. The second part is closely connected with the document is the plan action of the UN in terms of safeguarding of religious sites and prayer places. And for my opinion, this is one of the greatest achievements that you've done, distinguished Mr. Martinez, and within the UN and within the Alliance of Civilization. When we're talking about the safeguarding of religious sites, it's indeed talking about the safeguarding of people's humanities, culture, because we see threats in terms of these religious sites in Palestine, Gaza, and we see that everything was destroyed, trees, people, places, buildings, and religious sites that was established in 5th century. Now it distracted from the side of aggressors in the sector of Gaza. Also religious sites in Al-Azhar, we don't discriminate. We count it as an important part. In conclusion, I'd like to say that we need an international alliance in terms of preserve of this object. This is what we need right now. This is the idea that we proposed already with the Mr. Supreme Imam, and on how we can provide an international conference in terms of this topic that is closely connected with the UN plan. And on behalf of the Muslim Council and on behalf of its name of the Supreme Imam, I'd like to say that we are ready to cooperate with you, distinguished Mr. Martinez, to provide the following conference. Thank you so much. Wish you all the best.
Спасибо большое. Его превосходительство Мухаммед Абдель Салам, генеральный секретарь Совета мусульманских старейшин, за такое хорошее выступление. Сейчас я бы хотел передать слово господину раввину Давиду Антеби Сакка, представителю главного сафардского раввина Израиля.
Thank you. On behalf of the Sephardic Chief Rabbi of Israel, Rabbi W. Yosef.
Спасибо большое. речь от имени сефардского главного раввина Израиля, раввина Давида Йосефа. Ваше превосходительство, господин президент Республики Казахстан, господин Токаев, к сожалению, его здесь нет. Ваше превосходительство.
Moratinos, distinguished representative of the United Nations, esteemed leaders of religious, ladies and gentlemen. First, allow me to express my deepest gratitude for the invitation and the warm hospitality extended to us at this important social session and in the Congress. Our gathering here in Astana, it is itself a testament of the power of cooperation among nations and faiths in the service of noble goal, the safeguarding of the religious sites across the world. In Judaism, a special emphasis is placed on respect of the deceased. Our sages teach us, even after the end of a person's life, the body retains in sanctity, and the final resting place, the grave, must be protected from any violation and desecration. This belief stems from the conviction that the soul is eternal and continues to exist beyond physical life. Thus, harm to grave is not seen merely as attack on an history or heritage, but as a profound assault on a dignity, on eternal nature of the human being. This issue is very important to the Rabbi Yosef, as I am his representative, because it's not only a matter of faith, it's also an history, a family history of him. Several decades ago, his father, he also was a chief rabbi, his father, Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, he was informed that there is a development road project in Egypt which threatened ancient Jewish cemeteries. He personally met the president, Hosni Mubarak. He went to Egypt to meet him, and he told him that it must protect the cemetery, the Jewish cemetery, and prevent this project. In his appeal, Rabbi Yosef wrote a letter. I brought you here the letter that the Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, when he was a chief rabbi in Israel, he wrote it to the government of Egypt, and he sent it to the president, Hosni Mubarak, asking him not to touch the cemetery, the Jewish cemetery in Egypt. And this letter really moved the Egyptian leadership to act. And the president, Hosni Mubarak, ordered to stop the works and not to touch the cemetery. That episode demonstrates how dialogue and mutual respect between religious leaders and statements can transform principles into concrete protection for sites of memory and dignity. Sadly, Jewish cemeteries around the world have often been neglected, vandalized, or even destroyed. Tombstones have been shredded, burial grounds uprooted, sometimes in times of conflict, sometimes through indifference, and sometimes motivated by hatred. These underline the shared responsibility that falls upon us not only toward the Jewish people, but toward all humanity. Burial sites of every religion and tradition are living witnesses of people and communities. Protecting them is not an integral part of a global struggle against hatred, intolerance, and religious violence. Therefore, I call for ongoing cooperation between governments, religious leaders, and local communities. Together, We must ensure that every grave, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Shinto, and any other faith, is preserved with dignity, shielded from vandalism, and accessible to the descendants and believers. I particularly wish to highlight the role of interfaith dialogue. When religious leaders in different countries join forces, they send a clear message. The sanctity of life and the dead is an universal value transcending borders, culture, and land and languages. Such dialogue is not only a tool of prevent a conflict, but also a bridge of peace, trust, and mutual understanding. Ladies and gentlemen, the safeguarding of religious sites, and particular Jewish cemeteries across the globe, is not only an historical religious duty. It is a moral test for an international community. As long as we protect the sacred sites of others, we may also hope that our own will be protected. These words I share today in the name of the Sephardic Rabbi Yosef, as a call of a mutual respect, international cooperation, and shared responsibility. Let us strengthen international cooperation and mutual assistance in this field so that together we may ensure that every community's sacred sites are safeguarded, honored, and prevent for generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi David Antebisaka, Representative Chief Sephardic Rabbi of Israel. And I give the floor to Rabbi Shlomo Menachem Cook, Representative Chief Ashkenazi Rabbi of Israel.
Your Excellency, Mr. Moratinos, representatives of the Republic of Kazakhstan, dear leaders and friends, is it my privilege to be here in beautiful Astana already for 10 years. The weather outside may be cold, but the welcome here is always warm. We feel the true will of the leaders of the Republic of Kazakhstan to promote the values of love, brotherhood, peace, and friendship. At the beginning, I want to thank the former Chief Rabbi of Israel, genius Rabbi Yitzhak Yosef, whom I had the honor to represent here for 10 years. Since the beginning of the Congress, 23 years ago, the Chief Rabbinate of Israel has sent rabbis to represent it here, and the ideas, the important ideas. This year I have the honor to represent the newly elected Ashkenazi Chief Rabbi of Israel, genius Rabbi Kalman Meir Ber, who is on his way and will join tomorrow to the great gathering of religious leaders. Let me begin with a word about fear. Just a few days ago, the shocking murder of Charlie Kirk in the United States showed the danger of a world where people cannot listen to a different opinion. This tragedy is a warning for all humanity. I also this fear in my own country. Last year, I was invited to moderate an official interfaith meeting organized by the Ministry of Interior in Israel. The meeting was held in a hotel in Jerusalem, in the city of Jerusalem, not political at all. Its only purpose was to stand together, religious leaders, and to say in one voice, violence and attacks against holy sites must stop. But some leaders didn't come, not because they didn't want to, but because they were afraid. Even to be seen in such meeting could put them at a risk. This fear shows why our gathering here in Astana is so important. At the same time, let me share something personal. In Jewish tradition, every grave is holy. Not only the graves of the great leaders, but every grave of every human being. This comes from our deep belief in eternal life and in eternal soul. The place that shows this more than any other is the cemetery Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, one of the most important places in the Jewish tradition. According to our faith, the prophets are buried there, and from this place, resurrection will begin as part of our belief in redemption and the coming of Mashiach. For thousands of years, tens of thousands of Jews have been buried there. Sadly, even this holy place of dead Jewish people suffered from harassment, attacks, and even acts of terror. I myself not been able for many years to visit the graves of my grandparents who were killed in a car accident and are buried in the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, not by choice, but out of fear. Many others are not able to visit the graves of their loved ones because they fear from their own lives. Protecting holy places is a global mission. It is the duty of every state and of all of us as an international community to act firmly against those who harm holy places. And here I speak directly to the representative of the United Nations present with us. The responsibility to ensure the protection of religious sites is a moral test for the whole world. We cannot allow our holy stones to become targets for hatred and violence. Before I close, I must speak from the pain of my people. 48 hostages who were taken from their beds, from their homes, are still held in Gaza tunnels. They have been there for 711 days and nights. Every single day and night is like eternity for the families, waiting without an answer. This is a test for humanity, whether we can protect innocent lives and bring them back home soon. And finally, I return my first point. Our gathering here is not simple or obvious. In a world where some are afraid even to attend an in-faith meetings, our presence here together is already a powerful message. We are protecting not only stones, but also the soul of humanity. These holy stones are not just walls. They are the living heart of faith, of culture, of a human identity. As we say in Jewish tradition, there are people with a heart of stone, and there are stones with the heart of a man, of people. I will end with a prayer. God, the creator of the world, will give wisdom to humanity to abandon terror and to hold on the values of love and peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Shlomo Menachem Cook, representative of the Chief Ashkenazi Rabbi of Israel, for your intervention. And now I give the floor to Excellency Monsieur Jean-Christophe Possel, Ambassador. Tu as la parole.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je comprends que je peux m'exprimer en français, qu'il y a une traduction depuis le français. Oui. Je serai plus à l'aise. Merci beaucoup. Et puis je dois vous confesser mon embarras parce que mon intervention.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'd like to say that for my speech is within the computer, but I have some issues with computer, so I just memorized what I have. So that's why I will try to provide my speech. Firstly, I'd like to thank the representatives of the government of the Republic of Kazakhstan for provision of such an event as the Congress, and within the following Congress of Traditional Leaders, it lets us to observe some of the issues that are really important. And also I'd like to thank the Alliance of Civilization and General Secretary of the following alliance. 1 year ago, we were in Portugal and we were discussing the following issues, and I think that this is a really vital to cover the following issues again, to discuss all that again, because what is important in terms of that? We have to keep going, and we have to find the answers for that issues. We have to discuss all that topics because they need a cultural approach, they need an educational, governmental approach in long-term basis. Also, I'd like to leave some of the thoughts of mine in terms of that question. Firstly, is about our daily life. We were talking about that already in Gaza Strip, in Sudan, and our current realities show that conflicts distract the planet Earth and the humanity. It keeps distracting our religious sites. I don't want to provide some of the details in terms of that, but I just want to say about the religious sites in Gaza Strip for now. This is the important issue that really urgent, and it needs a mobilization of every participant, of every diplomat, of every politicians, civil societies, religious leaders, in order to stop it, in order to stop all that conflict that kills people, that distracts sites, especially religious sites. Second, my thought that I'd like to share with you is that the following issue is not limited only with the preservation of religious sites of conflict countries. It also closely connected with my own country. We are not within the conflict. We don't have conflicts, such countries that I mentioned before. But in spite of that, on a regular basis, we can have some of the attacks towards religious sites, towards religious commons, to religious church, mosques. Maybe some of the abuses we can see in the walls of churches, or attempts of arsons, and people, especially French government, always is trying to raise the following issue. So that's why the following topic is of particular importance on the agenda, not only within the conflict countries. And we have to find, we can't lose our religious sites, and we have to stay against all that approaches. And if you walking by through the France, you will see some of the churches that are closed because they faced some of the violations, they faced some attacks, and this is also on government's responsibility. Government has to invest within the preservation of religious sites. I like to say that in France, Mr. Emmanuel Macron launched a special program in terms of preservation of religious sites, and I hope that it will lead in a political level. We have to define religious sites and design a special economical program, a special financial program. Without all that, we can't develop in a long-term basis. Third point, when within the government we have a huge number of religious sites, the issue is about rehabilitation, is about the provision of importance to the following sites. We also have to have expertise procedures. We have to have a special amount of appropriate knowledge. We have to have special specialists in terms of that. When we were doing some of the preservation procedures in churches in France, we discovered that we have to raise an old specialist and all professions who were responsible for stone designing and in order to restore it, in order to preserve it. So that's why it means that we have to launch within the political level the need of education for such people. And because we can't lose our historians, we can't lose such specialists. The next point is the issue of education, is the issue of bringing up people, because it's highly important to provide such a sense of importance to our young people, to our young kids, because it's important to make them adequate. They have to have this idea within them in terms of preservation of religious sites. In spite of that, for example, a church in Paris, it's a Catholic church that is located in Paris. And this is a religious place of Catholic people. But during the fire, during the vandalism acts, we saw that a huge number of not only Catholic, but a huge number of representatives of various types of confessions took participation within the preservation, within the rehabilitation of the following church. I saw a huge number of young school children who participated in that. As a conclusion, I'd like to talk about the Notre Dame church in Kashkayesh. 1 year ago, we already mentioned the following aspect in terms of construction, in terms of rehabilitation. It was about 1 month until opening, and I've participated within the opening ceremony of the new church in Paris. I saw the beauty of the following site, and I told that it's like I didn't see my favorite woman for 5 years. It's like the same feelings. And I realized, when I saw it, I realized how beautiful that is. And so now I see how the whole population took participation within the following construction. And since the December of the following year, 9 million people visited the following church. 9 million people. That's an incredible, and it says that the following church is considered not just a church, but as the vital place, as the vital site, as the place for pray. But in spite of that, the door of the following church is open for everyone, for any person, for any confession. And I think that it says a lot. It says that this is the motivation for hope. This is a room for hope in order to make us united, in order to make us mobilized within the preservation of and safeguarding of religious sites. Thank you so much for your attention, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to
Dr. Francis Correa, Secretary General of Religion for Peace, Secretary General of the African Council of Religious Leaders for Peace. My dear friend, Francis, you have the floor.
Thank you. Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, my Lordships, distinguished leaders, citizens of Sastania, receive warm greetings of peace. Thank you for your warm reception and hospitality since we arrived in your city and country. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to both the International Center of Interfaith and Interreligious Dialogue and the VIII Congress of World Leaders for co-organizing this special session and the opportunity to address this salient discussion of safeguarding religious sites. It is with utmost urgency that we address the current conditions that have brought us here today, as well as our sacred responsibility to advocate for the protection of holy sites that have become vulnerable to desecration vandalism, destruction, and violence. For over 50 years, Religions for Peace has galvanized a global movement of dedicated religious leaders from different faiths working towards common action. One of our priorities has always been an unwavering advocacy in the safeguarding of freedom of religious worship, and within it, religious worship sites, essential to our practices and to our communities. Religious sites are more than the physical structures in which we worship. They are centers of community and connection. They are essential if we are to protect the freedom of religious thought, conscience, and belief. They are a beacon of identity, dignity, and the shared essence of humanity. More than that, they are practical spaces of peace, sanctuaries during humanitarian crisis, safe houses for refugees and others fleeing violence, beloved sites of sacred convergence. When these spaces are threatened by violence, hatred, and intolerance, the souls of communities, the history that exists as an extension of these sacred places, are also at risk. In a world of rising intolerance, religious sites are susceptible to cultural degradation and environmental exploitation, leaving people across the world without a safe space to worship and communities without a protected center. In the last few years alone, hundreds of people have lost their lives at the sacred spaces that they were meant to protect them, and in over 100 countries have experienced attacks or desecration of religious sacred sites. This destruction of religious sites defies the necessary freedom of religion and belief by stripping worshippers of a place where they feel safe to practice. In 2011, Religions for Peace released the Universal Code of Conduct on Holy Sites, adopted by thousands across our global movement. The code offers practical guidelines for protecting places of worship and includes a bold call for cooperation between faith communities, governments, and civil society. Since then, many of our interreligious councils across the globe have implemented parts of this code. As an example, in Bosnia and Herzegovina, the Interreligious Council there spearheaded a project of systematic reporting of attacks of holy sites, interfaith public condemnation of violence, and active engagement of stakeholders such as the police, media, and local political leaders, directly leading to a decrease in holy site destruction. Our actions are inspired by countries that have championed the protection of sacred sites. Our gracious host country of Kazakhstan is a beacon of influence in this regard, with a constitutional mandate that fiercely protects all holy sites. I urge each and every one of you in this forum, as leaders and vital members of your community, to take inspiration from our hosts and the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations plan of action to safeguard holy sites. We must promote our own sacred spaces and houses of worship as safe places for multi-faith dialogue, which champion freedom of belief, thought, and conscience. Work in our communities to address the underlying causes of violence, inequality, intolerance, hate, and the unwillingness to learn from others. And lastly, we must advocate to our government and international bodies to prioritize protection of sacred sites, both explicitly in laws and policies and implicitly in social and behavioral change. Every human deserves a place to worship free from fear, no matter their religion. We must recognize that in safeguarding religious sites, we are also safeguarding community, history, and identity, and the lives of worshippers that exist within these spaces. Let our combined efforts ensure the preservation of sacred spaces everywhere, a crucial component of achieving a shared sacred well-being for people and the planet. Thank you, and may peace and blessings be with you all.
Thank you, Dr. Francis Curia. for your intervention and your engagement in this issue. So now I give the floor to Imam Marwan Sarwat Gil, Commissioner of Organization American States for Religion Freedom. You have the floor.
Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, Assalamu alaikum, peace be upon you all. In the name of Allah, the gracious, the merciful. I think all of us who are sitting around this table, we understand the importance of today's topic. And what comes to my mind is the English proverb, if you sit in a glass house, don't throw with stones. In order to protect our right to practice our religion, it's essential that we protect others' religious sites. But I was wondering and thinking in preparation of today's session, what arguments could be presented to those who do not agree with us and who violate the sanctity of religious sites? So first of all, I was thinking about especially how much the religious sites are deeply rooted into our cultural, moral, and social heritage and our rich history as mankind. So there's no surprise that even according to UNESCO, 20% of all those buildings and sites which are declared as the global heritage, they have a deep connection with religious and spiritual places. But I would go even one step ahead and claim that religious sites are not just deeply rooted to our past, but also to our present and our future as mankind. Because when religious sites and temples are vandalized, demolished, the loss is not limited to the architectural or material, but goes much beyond. And in my case, as a person who was born and raised in Germany, especially the famous words of a Jewish German writer, Heinrich Heine, resonate a lot. When he, at the beginning of the Nazi persecution against Jews, he said the famous words that in societies, when they start burning the books of a certain group or minority, those societies end up burning their bodies. Unfortunately, his famous words turned to be true with the Holocaust, but I would say it's a universal warning for all of us. And we can say the same pattern, that those societies where religious sites, especially of minorities, are not protected, also the life itself is threatened of those members. And due to the time, I will not go into the example of the several Christian, Muslim, Jewish, or other faith minorities, but just give my own example. I belong, and my parents, they belong to the Ahmadiyya Muslim community, and because of the religious persecution, they had to migrate from Pakistan. And if we analyze, for example, this close interconnection between the threat to the life and the vandalization of mosques or religious sites, according to Knox Thames, an independent scholar and researcher and human activist, he, for example, stated that just in the year 2024, more than 20 mosques of the Ahmadiyya community were vandalized just in one province of Punjab. So the point which I want to highlight is that those societies who fail to protect the religious sites, gradually they will fail to protect as well the human dignity and the human sanctity of life. And I believe that the sanctity of religious sites is at the center of the Article 18 of the Human Rights Declaration, which guarantees the freedom of religion for every human being. And it's a great source of inspiration for myself personally that my religion 14 centuries ago revealed this truth. In my case, the Holy Quran, in chapter 22 and verse 41, clearly interconnected and established religious freedom with the protection of religious sites. And a very interesting point, which I want to highlight here, that before mentioning the order, the moral duty to Muslims to protect the mosques, the precise name of synagogues, churches, and temples have been mentioned. So many times, and contrary to the action and mischievous behavior of extremists and so-called Muslims who want to hijack the noble terminology of jihad, Islam teaches to the Muslims that it's their moral duty to protect all religious sites in their societies. And the Holy Prophet, the founder of Islam, Holy Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, even in times of wars, he precisely instructed to his followers to keep this in mind. And I'm convinced that it was his noble example and teachings and guidance that when his second caliph, Hazrat Umar, may Allah be pleased with him, when he visited Jerusalem and was invited by the Christians to offer the prayers in a holy Christian site, he refused that offer. And he said that he will not do so because out of the fear that the followers or the coming generations might convert the holy Christian site into a mosque. So now, in conclusion, just touching the example or the point, how can we establish this noble example as well in our societies and in our surroundings? I found a very beautiful Kazakh proverb or saying. I will not read it out in the Kazakh language in order to avoid the wrong pronunciation, but the translation is, if the heart is generous, the house or no space will feel little or small. So I think if we achieve to purify our hearts and convert our hearts into sacred places, then not only God will descend there, but we'll become automatically guardians of all the religious places around the world. So may Allah, may God enable us all to be peacemakers and guardians of all religious sites and sacred places. Amen.
Thank you very much, Imam Marwan Sarwargil, Commissioner of Organization, American State for Religion Freedom, for your very inspiring words, and I will comment later on my concluding segment. Now I give the floor to Her Excellency Mr. Rona Otto Ivan, Ambassador of Hungary to the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Thank you so much. Chairman, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to read out this speech of State Secretary of the Prime Minister's Office of Hungary in charge of Church and National Minority, Mr. Miklos Soltész, who unfortunately got stuck at the airport and was unable to arrive today, but hopefully tomorrow he will be with us already. Allow me to begin, first of all, by expressing my gratitude for the invitation and the opportunity to be here. This conference, which brings together representatives of different religions, symbolizes in itself that humanity has a shared responsibility for peace, for the teaching of our churches, and the preservation of our spiritual heritage. Today, the world is facing numerous challenges and uncertainties in political, social, and moral terms alike. Currently, we are living in an age of danger, so it is of utmost importance to have points of reference to which we can return. For us Hungarians, these points of reference are the values that stem from our faith and our centuries-old cultural and religious traditions, which have not only shaped our identity, but are also sustaining us in present days and pointing the way for the future. The renewal and future development of Hungary cannot be imagined without value-based communities. In this work, religious communities with a 1,000-year history are natural and valued allies of the government. This conviction is also reflected in the fact that our country's new fundamental law, adopted in 2011, fully guarantees freedom of conscience and religion, both at the individual and community levels. At the same time, it recognizes the historical and nation-preserving role of Christianity and respects all religious traditions present in our country. The state not only recognizes religious communities, but also considers them as strategic partners. Currently, there are 32 churches with featured status and other smaller denominations operating in Hungary. This number is outstanding even by international standards and clearly reflects the Hungarian government's extremely supportive policy towards churches. Few countries in Europe can take pride in such extensive and positive relations with religious communities. Hungary's religious diversity is also remarkable. In addition to Christian denominations, which have the largest number of followers, Jewish, Buddhist, Muslim, and Hindu communities can also practice their faith in peace and security. The role of churches is not only to transmit religious and moral values, but also to shape society on a daily basis. Churches play an active role in the performance of public tasks. The Hungarian government strives to provide them with all the necessary theoretical and material support, as we believe that the presence and work of churches are of irreplaceable value in the life of society. Over the past 15 years, the Christian Democratic government has achieved rapid growth in the following areas. Since 2010, the number of children attending church-maintained educational institutions has more than doubled. More than 250,000 children attend such institutions in Hungary, which has a population of 9.5 million. There are 50 church-maintained institutions in the healthcare sector. In 14 years, more than 3,800 churches have been renovated, 200 new churches have been built, and 1,800 community spaces have been reconstructed, and 340 new community spaces have been built. And the Hungarian population in Hungary and in the Hungarian populated areas of the Carpathian Basin. Our churches have a remarkably strong presence in the social sector as well. The stable economic situation allows us to support not only the preservation of our built heritage, but also the support of religious education, the income of church personnel, as well as community programs. Esteemed conference, the cooperation with churches has also brought about change at the societal level. The number of marriages conducted has increased by 31% over the past decade. The fertility rate has risen from 1.25 to 1.4. The number of abortions has halved, and divorce rates have fallen by 26%. These numbers also show that religious life, religious communities, and decision-making based on Christian values strengthened our country not only spiritually, but in a social sense as well. Where churches are built and communities flourish, society is stronger and safer. Hungary is proud that our commitment to Christian values is tangibly shaping the future. However, we are rather saddened to see that churches and some parts of Europe are closing and being converted for secular purposes into nightclubs, hotels, sport halls. While in Hungary, sacred places are constantly being built and renovated. That is why events such as this Congress are so important, as they give us the opportunity to share our experiences, learn from each other, strengthen each other, and jointly formulate values that can guide future generations. I would like to express my gratitude to the host country, Kazakhstan, the organizers, and all those who contributed with their work to this exceptional event. I'm confident that the conference will be an inspiring and empowering experience for all of us. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Excellency, Ambassador of Hungary to Republic of Kazakhstan. And I have to say that I've been very generous with the speaker till now, but now the clock is going very quick. So I will ask you to try to respect the 3 minutes. Try to respect 3 minutes, because we've been talking 5 minutes, even more. So thank you. So now I give the floor to Mrs. Deborah Boudreau, Chief International Affairs Office, Buddhist Tzu-Chi Foundation, Buddhist Tzu-Chi Charity Foundation.
Thank you, Excellency Mr. Miguel Moratino, Excellency Mr. Malin Ashibayev, Ms. Niha Saad, Director of UNAOC, Venerable Jing Bao, and Venerable Li Guangfu, distinguished guests and friends. In Buddhism, sacred spaces are not only places for worship, but also heavens where compassion and wisdom are nurtured. Safeguarding them is protecting humanity's spiritual roots. At the Buddhist Tzu-Chi Foundation, our practice follow the teaching of Dharma Master Zheng Yan, gratitude, respect, and love. These values guide us to serve with impartial compassion, offering aid according to need, not greed. In this way, we protect dignity across all faiths, honoring the truth that all beings share the same intrinsic nature. When religious sites are harmed, we respond with the Bodhisattva spirit of Karuna, compassion in action. Volunteers and clergy of many traditions come together to repair damage, offer psychosocial care, and stand in solidarity. Dialogue is transformed into skillful means, or apaya, developing early warning systems against hate speech, mindful safety walkthroughs, and shared cultural gatherings that turn division into community. Our youth programs are rooted in Sila, ethical conduct. And in Master Zheng Yan's teachings say that the young are the hope of humanity. Through media literacy, the tools of AI information justification, compassion ethics, and service learning at diverse houses of worship, young people learn to discern truth from manipulation, protect sacred sites, and cultivate harmony across differences. AI can become a mirror of mindful inquiry, filtering misinformation, amplifying voices of peace, and ensuring accurate narratives of dignity and coexistence. Preparedness reflects right mindfulness, sammasati, mapping local religious sites, designating focal points, and ensure rapid response when threats rise. This mindful vigilance extended to everyday's practice. By promoting a plant-based diet rooted in compassion, we reduce harm to sentient beings and nurture a culture of respect for all life. In this way, safeguarding begins within cultivate inner compassion that blossoms outward into protection of sacred space and of the vulnerable. Interreligious dialogue affirms interbeing, that all Dharma doors open to the same universal truth. When we safeguarding another's sacred space, we honor our shared humanity. Governments and multilateral partners also share the responsibility guided by the principle of right action, funding site protection, enacting safeguards, and fostering resiliency. Faith community can embrace a mindful circle of mapping, protocols, liaison, and interfaith solidarity in action. Friends, safeguarding religious sites is not only about security, it is about living with gratitude, respect, and love. It is the Buddha path. It is the middle way. Neither fear nor neglect, but harmony and care. In this spirit, the Buddha Tzu Foundation and its affiliates network stands ready to work hand in hand with the United Nations, member states, and civil society to translate the UN Charter's promises into daily practice, and to embody the Pact for the Future as a living reality by cultivating compassion, applying wisdom, and embracing the tour of both tradition and innovation. We affirm that safeguarding sacred space is safeguarding the very dignity and future of humanity. Security with dignity, protection with participation. Thank you, and Amitofo.
Thank you very much. Mrs. Deborah Boudreau, Chief International Affairs Officer, Buddhist Sutchu Foundation, Buddhist Tuchi Charity Foundation. Thank you for your intervention. Now I give the floor to Reverend Dr. Joe Bailey Wells, Deputy Secretary General and Bishop for Episcopal Ministry in the Anglican Communion. Sir, you have the floor.
Your Excellencies, our generous hosts here in Kazakhstan, leaders at the UN, fostering pathways of peace, and my colleagues in religious leadership around the world, I greet you in the name of Jesus Christ, and I thank you for this opportunity to speak. The second woman in a row. How about that? I want to invite you to reflect on a very basic question. What makes a site sacred? What is it we might want to safeguard? The answer to this question shapes the way we then seek to set about the safeguarding. A sacred site speaks of a special place of encounter and transformation. In the Christian West, the notion is captured by one particular Latin anthem, Locus iste ad Deo factus est, which translates to "This place was made by God." It has a very famous musical setting by Anton Bruckner, in case you're interested. And it stems from the biblical story of Jacob's ladder, where Jacob says, "Surely the Lord is in this place, and I knew it not." And the story of the burning bush, where Moses is told to take the shoes from off your feet, for the place where you stand is holy ground. Here at the heart of the Torah is the expectation of God's transforming work, and then testimony of how God worked in human experience. And so, this place was made by God becomes, this place is where God made me. Over the course of centuries, a sacred site becomes a focus of commemorating where God made a people. It's a site for pilgrimage and devotion, precisely because it intensifies the ongoing formation of a people and their faith. I look forward to hearing thoughts on this from my colleagues around this table representing the variety of faiths, but I believe such a description holds true for the majority of us here. I've already quoted from the Hebrew Bible, a text held sacred across at least 3 of the world's major religions. I want to suggest that in recognizing a sacred site, the particular religious tradition is secondary. We may be talking about the Temple Mount for Jews, or the Golden Temple for Sikhs, or the Dome of the Rock for Muslims, Precisely because the foundation of a sacred site is theological, this place was made by God, it is not political or partisan to declare a site sacred. To which religion it may belong is a secondary matter if we can acknowledge first it is made by God. A sacred site is a special place of human-divine encounter, and thus a site of worship and transformation. As religious leaders in an increasingly secular and authoritarian world, I want to ask you, therefore, can we not stand together for the sake of safeguarding all sacred sites? If a sacred site is about God, some people might ask, why does it need safeguarding? An attack on a sacred site may profoundly dishonor God, but that in no way diminishes the divine. No human is capable of that. I urge that the word blasphemy does not belong here. Rather, what is being attacked when a sacred site is destroyed is the people whose identity is shaped and centered on that place. Destroying the site is a symbolic way to destroy a people, to suggest they do not belong, that they have no contribution to make, whereas the sacred site is the evidence for their historic presence, their legitimacy, their credibility. The issue is about religious freedom. And the real threat to religious freedom is the rise of authoritarian and totalitarian states where minorities are not tolerated but feared, where the notion of diversity somehow presents a threat to the identity of a nation. And so the solution has to be to work at coexistence, to come together in humility amidst our diversity and say, this place was made by God. It is therefore not mine or yours to destroy. From my own tradition, I want to name two heartbreaking recent circumstances. The first is in Artsakh in Nagorno-Karabakh, currently under Azerbaijani occupation. Artsakh has for centuries been home to an extraordinary Christian Armenian cultural heritage, churches, monasteries, crossstones, cemeteries, sacred monuments that date back more than 1,500 years. But since the 2023 attack, for the first time in centuries, there are no Armenians left there. His Grace, Bishop Vatanis Abrahamian, and his people are currently living in exile. Those Christian sacred sites are left completely unprotected, and independent reports evidence a deliberate campaign for their destruction and desecration, including attempts to falsify their true history as if to erase the Armenian presence from Artsakh's history and memory. The second place where sacred sites are threatened by a state acting to undermine religious diversity is in Israel. There is the example of Taibeh, which is the ancient site of Ephraim, where Jesus retreated before entering Jerusalem. It is almost the last exclusively Christian village in the country of Israel, but it has been progressively terrorized by settlers in recent months. Meanwhile, just as Rabbi Shlomo spoke of fearing to visit the Mount of Olives, so there are fears for both Christians and Muslims in Jerusalem right now. For Christians visiting the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, where Jesus was crucified, and for Muslims at the Al-Aqsa Mosque, especially around festivals, when it is most precious for the faithful to gather. We have the Hague Convention and UNESCO conventions for protecting cultural property in conflict zones, but I understand proper satellite monitoring mechanisms and oversight frameworks are sorely needed. Cataloguing sacred sites seems necessary and good, but we need to beware the way that highlighting them could exacerbate their vulnerability and increase the danger of destruction. As religious leaders gathered here, I urge that we work together for a different kind of protection. By working to protect religious freedom, especially the minority groups in our lands. I want to take this point made by Imam Marwan, my neighbor, a step further. There is little that speaks louder than when we step out beyond the interests of our own religious group to defend another religious group. If Muslims present here would speak for the Armenian Christians expelled from Nagorno-Karabakh, and if the Jews here would speak up for Taipei, and the Christians here for the safety and well-being of both Jews and Muslims in many Western nations right now, this special session would represent a significant step towards defending the vulnerable, challenging authoritarian governance, and protecting sacred sites. In asserting, surely this place is made by God, we are affirming that surely this world is made by God. By defending one another across our differences, not just defending our own, we are truly working together to safeguard every faith and every sacred site. Thank you.
Now, I will give the floor to His Virtue Sheikh Islam al-Sadr, his representative, for some comment of the Reverend at the end. But let me proceed because we don't want to create now some misunderstanding. Okay, so I give now the floor to Mr. Mufti Damir Mukhadinov, Professor, Doctor of Theology, First Deputy Chairman of Religious Board of Muslim Russian Federation, Executive Secretary of Muslim International Forum.
Бисмиллахир-рахманир-рахим. Прежде всего, позвольте поблагодарить организаторов.
Firstly and foremost, I'd like to thank the organizers of the following VIII Congress of Leaders of World Traditional Religions, and thank you so much for that kind invitation to address this important event. And I greet all those gathered here on behalf of the 25 million strong Muslim Ummah of the Russian Federation, and together with the chairman of the spiritual administration of Muslims of the Russian Federation, Sheikh Ravil, we have attended almost all the congresses of leaders of world and religions. In 2022, on the sidelines of this forum, we prayed together with the late Pope Francis for peace throughout the world, and the special session of today's meeting devoted to the protection of religious sites is especially relevant for Russian Muslims. We are making tremendous efforts in terms of safeguarding the historic Muslim religious sites and to revive the memory of lost shrines to which the scholarly literature published under our auspices is dedicated. And we see on how, with the personal example, people provide huge efforts in terms of safeguarding the sites. From a historical and architectural point of view, particular interest lies within the complex of Muslim sites in the city of Kasimov, 300 kilometers from Moscow, which once housed the residence of Khans and Sultans from the Chingizid dynasty. Among them was the Kazakh Khan of the 17th century, Uras Muhammad bin Ondan, whose tragic death became a prelude to the end of the time of troubles in Muscovite Russia. In Kasimov, there still stand the medieval Khans mosque and the mausoleums of the Chingizid Khan Shah Ali of the 16th century and the Khivan Sultan Afghan Muhammad of the 17th century. And today, after many decades during which these sites were requisitioned by the state, the spiritual administration of Muslims of the Russian Federation is doing everything possible to preserve them and to raise funds for the scholarly restoration. And among the most recent achievements was the installation at our expense in 2022 of a monument to Queen Suyumbike, a symbol of the Tatar people, on the square in the front of Han's Mosque, as well as the improvement of the central street in this area. The oldest mosque in the Russian capital is the historic mosque in the Tatar Sloboda, right in the heart of Moscow. It recently marked the 200th anniversary of its construction, and by order of the President of Russia, Vladimir Putin, with the support of the Moscow city government, the Ministry of Culture of Russia, and the Republic of Tatarstan. This mosque is currently under restoration. We're looking forward to the completion of the works and the ceremonial reopening of the renovated house of worship, and the spiritual administration of Muslims of the Russian Federation has organized the construction and restoration of mosques in Moscow, Tver, Yaroslav, and the crescents of these mosques peacefully neighbor the crosses of Christian churches, and this fact alone is a source of our pride. We are convinced that precisely this approach, careful preservation of historical memory, and it is a prologue of peace throughout the world. So, and Surah 22 of the Quran, Al-Hajj, states that if Allah did not allow some people to defend themselves against others, monasteries, churches, synagogues, and mosques in which the name of Allah is much mentioned would surely have been destroyed. It's precisely the violent seizure of sacred sites and repeated violations of fundamental human rights that lie at the root of major military and political conflicts drawing the world's attention. Religious leaders prayed for peace and called for balance and harmony in interfaith and inter-ethnic conflicts. In conclusion, I'd like to provide my gratitude to the organizers, to the Republic of Kazakhstan. Thank you so much for provision of such a meeting. Thank you so much for the head of state, Qasım-Jomart Tokayev, who participated within the General Assembly UN in 2023. He was talking about the protection of Quran. Also, Madam Nihal Sadat for the huge efforts within the preservation of faith and peace. Thank you so much for your attention.
Mufti Damir Mukhadinov, thank you for your intervention, and I will still insist to try to keep the 3 minutes. So now I give the floor to Dr. Mohammed Raghib Hussein Naemi, Chairman of the Council of Islamic Ideology of the Islamic Republic of Pakistan.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you. Distinguished guests, delegates, respected religious leaders, excellencies, and honored guests. I will recite here 2 verses of the Holy Quran. The first one is Lakum Dinukum Waliyadin, for you, your faith, and for me, my faith. And the second one is Kul ta'alaw ila kalimatin sawa'im bainana bainakum. O Prophet, peace be upon him, come to agree on those points which are common between you and us. It is both a privilege and a solemn responsibility to address this distinguished gathering today. As the chairman of the Council of Islamic Ideology of Pakistan, I bring with me not only the sentiments of the peoples of Pakistan, but also the collective hearing of communities across the world who seek to worship in peace, dignity, and security. In an era marked by unprecedented technological progress and global connectivity, it is deeply distressing that we continue to witness a rise in violence against places of worship. mosques, churches, synagogues, temples, sacred sites that should stand as sanctuaries of peace and reflection are increasingly becoming targets of threat, violence, and political provocation. The United Nations Secretary General's report rightly identifies this as a global crisis, whether it is a desecration of holy books, the bombing of mosques, the burning of churches, or the demolition of temples. Such acts are not assaults on building, but attack on the very identity and dignity of communities. They seek to repudiate our social fabric and fan of the flames of division. As a religious leader, and more importantly as a humble servant of faith that teaches compassion, tolerance, and coexistence, I firmly believe no one should ever have to fear for their life simply because they wish to bow their head in prayer. Grave concern about Gaza, Myanmar, and other areas in the world. On the other hand, we cannot overlook the painful reality unfolding in regions such as Gaza, Myanmar. In Gaza, religious sites are not spread in the midst of the relentless bombardment. Mosques, churches, synagogues, and graveyards, symbols of people, history, and faith, lie in ruins. In Myanmar, the Muslim Rohingya population has seen their mosques burned and their villages razed, often with impunity. These are not isolated incidents, they are a reflection of a deeper malaise, a growing intolerance that must be collectively addressed. At the same time, I also condemn hundreds of attacks on mosques, shrines, and worship places in Pakistan from 9/11 till now. We Pakistani face 90,000 persons to be killed in these activities in the name of someone's own Islamic ideology. But it is the truth that Islamic ideology, it is totally against this ideology. The role of responsibilities of the governments, as recognized under Article 18 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, the right to practice one's faith freely, including the protection of one's place of worship, is a non-negotiable human right. The UN Charter clearly entrusts member states with the primary responsibility to ensure the safety and protection of religious sites within their borders. The UN General Assembly Resolution 55/254 also obligates states to exert their utmost effort in this regard. In democracies where governments are elected by the people, this responsibility becomes even more profound. The social contract demands protection, not persecution. Even governments fail to protect religious sites, they not only violate international law, they betray the trust of their own people. Global solution, the United Nations Plan of Action, we commend the United Nations efforts, including the Plan of Action to safeguard religious sites and the recent global conference in Cascais. These initiatives provide framework for cooperation, policy development, and mutual accountability. But frameworks alone are not enough. We must see real action. We must see real action, real enforcement, and real change on the ground. Let us move from conferences to commitments and from commitments to concrete protection. In Pakistan, we recognize the diversity of our religious landscape. Our constitution guarantees religious freedom, and our government remains committed to the protection of all places of worship, mosques, churches, gurdwaras, mandirs alike. And for this, for the very first time, the definition of Muslim introduced in the Constitution of Pakistan, the person will be called a Muslim who has faith in the oneness of the Allah Almighty, and he has faith in the last prophethoodness of the last prophet of the peace of Muhammad, peace be upon him. Religious leaders must lead. Finally, I appeal to my fellow religious leaders, Muslim, Christian, Jewish, Hindus, Buddhists, and others. Let us not allow the forces of hatred to hijack our faith. Let us collaborate more closely, speak more courageously, and stand more united in condemning intolerance, promoting coexistence, and demanding that all governments rise to their sacred duty to protect what is sacred to their people. Let this special session not just mark another date in the calendar, but become a turning point in our shared commitment to humanity, dignity, and the divine truth. As we approach the 80th anniversary of the United Nations Charter, let's renew our vow to uphold this spirit, not only in theory, but in every community, every street, and every sacred site around the world. May peace prevail upon all people of faith. May justice guide our actions, and may we never forget when a sacred site falls, a part of our shared humanity falls with it. Thank you.
Thank you. Please try to keep in 3 minutes. So now I give the floor to Mr. Samir Santilai Somalia, President of Somalia Vidavar and Chancellor of Somalia Vidavar University.
Your Excellencies, thank you so much for inviting me on the behalf of Hinduism to speak here on the safeguarding of religious sites. Religious sites are both physical and spiritual. They are sanctuaries for the individual and the community. They are places of prayer, they are places of longing for the individual with the divine and for the community with their identity, for a freedom to worship publicly and privately, openly and also in one's own mind. I would like to quote Mahatma Gandhi, who was a great leader of the last century and, in my opinion, a leader for all time. He mentioned that an eye for an eye will only end making the whole world blind. The meeting here today and the Congress tomorrow brings us here to remind us to keep our eyes open and not be blinded by the hatred we see and the hatred we hear. Gandhi also famously said, "I will not let anyone walk through my mind with their dirty feet." I think it's important for us because we all know that in the social places we inhabit, we do at times try to have people walk through our minds with their dirty feet. Let this meeting also remind us to keep our doors closed and not let those dirty feet in. Gandhi also famously said, "Let us accord the same respect to the religious faith of others as we would accord one's own." There's a lovely saying in our scripture, "Na manushat paro dharma." There is no religion greater than service to humanity. I would like to talk about a couple of personal examples. I have recently started learning music. My teacher is a teacher, an ustad. He comes from the Muslim faith. And we recently had a festival of Ganesha in India, in the Hindu tradition. And he asked me when he came home, when he saw the decorations, I said, "This is a festival to Ganesha." So he asked me, can I perform for him? Which is a beautiful sense of bridging cultures. And he taught me the first bandish, which is a bandish to Allah, to Rahim, to Kareem. And so I think it is not just enough it is also interesting for us to get into the other culture, to belong, to respect it, and also in many ways to love it, even though it may not be your own. You live in your own culture, but you respect the other. As I also come from an education institution, taking learnings from today, I think it is important for us to take our own students to religious places, not only of the tradition they come from, but from others, so they learn to respect the thoughts and the architecture of the other traditions that there are. I would like to end with a saying from the Atharva Veda, Abhayam Mitrat, Abhayam Amitrat, Abhayam Gnatat, Abhayam Puroyaha, Abhayam Naktam, Abhayam Devanaha, Sarva Asha Mama Mitram Bhavantu. Let us not fear people or places we know. Let us not fear the future we don't know. Let us not fear what is we know to come and what we do not know to come. Let all situations and directions be friends of us. We all live on one planet. We all share one world and one fate. Let us all work together to make it beautiful for all of us. It's our only home. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Samuel Santina Sumaya, for your intervention, for reminding us the fantastic quotation of the grand leader Gandhi, and your final comment about one humanity that are the one we have to defend. Now we will ask Dr. Ali Akbar, CIA, Head of Center for Interreligion Intercultural Dialogue, to take the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I would like to thank the Excellency Martinius, the President and Chairman of this session, and also the Excellency Mrs. Nihat and the other chairmans of this session. Before
Перед тем, как я
say that Karabakh, it cannot be occupied by the Azerbaijan government. The Karabakh is the part of Azerbaijan, and we cannot use this term about the Karabakh. I would like to say that in Iran we have about 300 churches from 3rd century of Christianity, and we have many religious sites from Jews like Esther Mordechai in Hamadan and other Judaic seminaries in Iran that is preserved and protected by the government. And also we have the Ministry of Cultural Heritage that protect these religious sites, and every year they spend a lot of money for renovation and also preserve these religious sites. And in some places that some Christians, for example, they immigrate in other cities and the church is remain without any protection, some Muslims begin to protect that sites and begin to repair that church. For example, the Muslim repairs the church. We have many samples in Iran. Religious sites are not only sanctuaries for prayer, they are also places where believers come together for friendship, compassion, and charitable work, helping orphans, the poor, and vulnerable. Communities that still gather in sacred places to remember God often enjoy stronger social cohesion than those where extreme individualism, shaped by certain modern ideologies, had weakened communal ties. These sites also form an essential part of a nation's cultural and spiritual heritage. Destroying them in tantamount to erasing the identity of a people. The finest expression of human creativity, painting, mirrorwork, ceramics, and architecture are often found in religious buildings. Some of the greatest artist treasures of nations such as Iran, Egypt, India, and China can be seen in mosques, churches, synagogues, Hindu temples, and Buddhist shrines. To ignore or destroy such treasures for political, military, or sectarian reasons is not only an offense against one nation, but an injury to all humanity and its spiritual achievements. In recent years, we have witnessed the destruction of churches by groups like ISIS, as well as the demolition of Muslim and Christian holy sites in the occupied Palestinian territories. Acts aimed at erasing the religious identity of entire peoples. A significant number of sacred sites are the resting places of great Islamic leaders and scholars. Sadly, some of these have been wiped out, sometimes under the pretext of urban development, sometimes because of sectarian extremism, and sometimes in the name of fighting innovation. Among them are the historic grave in Bagi. Traditionally, the construction of elegant Islamic structures over the graves of spiritual leaders was a way to honor their memory and to draw nearer to God. Today, as many Muslim societies recognize the danger of sectarianism and religious extremism and seek to embrace moderation and mutual respect among Islamic schools and other faiths, they must also dedicate themselves to restoring and preserving their religious heritage. Doing so strengthens the unity of the Muslim community and enriches the intellectual and spiritual life of nations while reviving their religious identity. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ali Akbarzieh. And now I give the floor to Mr. Nader Elias Moghrabi, Council of Patriarch of Holy City of Jerusalem and all Palestine, Theophilus III.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Your Excellencies, Your Eminences, Your Graces, Reverend Fathers, respected delegates, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. When we think of sacred sites or religious heritage, worn stones, tall towers come to mind. We think of the mosaics and the artifacts that tell a story of a faith and connect visitors to a legacy that precedes them. All of this is, of course, true. I'm here to talk about Jerusalem, a city that is exceptionally unique. We think of it as a place of many holy sites, scores in fact, that shapes geopolitics, interfaith relations, and attract the fascination of the world. When we think of Jerusalem as a complex collection of holy sites, we divide them up in our minds into Christian, Jewish, or Muslim. But I come today to challenge that, not in the spirit of relativism, but in the spirit of a more ambitious vision. As his beatitude, Patriarch of Jerusalem Theophilus III said years ago, we must consider Jerusalem as a whole, as a holy site in and of itself. I stand before you as a child of Jerusalem. My family stories are intertwined with the sacred spaces of all who call the holy city home. The business of pilgrims en route to the Holy Sepulchre, or the Kotel, the Western Wall, with the mosque's call to prayer in the background. Even my name is a testament to these stories. It is Nader Elias, and Elias, as well known, is a revered prophet in Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. We are a Muslim family and proudly serving churches in Jerusalem since the early 60s. As a Muslim in the 90s, my late father, God rest his soul, for a decade, purchased the yeast, the chametz, from Israel in the Passover period through the Chief Rabbi's office to help fulfill the commandments for the Jewish faith and its worshippers. Monasteries and mosques have shaped the person that I am today and instilled in me a desire to see these holy places preserved but also thriving. Jerusalem is a multi-religious mosaic, but it is fragile and at risk of being broken. In the plenary session, Patriarch Theophilus will speak tomorrow about the importance of dialogue and synergy for the Holy Land. He will cast a hopeful vision whereby the Holy Land and the holy cities lives up to its calling as a mosaic of people and faiths, where all have something to learn from another. It is a place of human flourishing and not a zero-sum game. This, of course, is what we continue to work for, but the challenges are ever present. When we understand Jerusalem in its entirety as a holy site, then the threats against this fragile mosaic become all the more serious. There are various actors who see the land as a zero-sum game. But if we're asked to point the top of the list, the answer will always be radicalism, especially in time of tension. Radicals always attempt to erode the presence of one faith over the other, both in space and in spirit. They refuse to partake in a vision of shared space. We can offer a small key. Clergy are the key. Through their work of preservation and practice, they conduct services and change light bulbs. They are facility managers, community representatives, and leaders in their own right. More so, they are the ones who welcome all, regardless of their faith, to the festivals being celebrated and the services conducted. They connect the heritage and power of sacred spaces to all who enter the doors. If international bodies want to truly create meaningful action, they must engage with our religious leaders on the ground for the protection, preservation, and promotion of religious and cultural heritage. This is the key to action. The message is clear. Partnership with people, not just spaces. Do not forget the importance of people in the protection of sacred sites. The sites embody tradition, culture, and identity to the indigenous community who worship there. We cannot afford to overlook their devotion. We cannot forget that the living people are the mortar that holds these sacred stones together. We must learn their stories and what the sacred sites mean to them. Enable clergy to be the bridge between safeguarding strategies discussed here and the needs of the local community. This week, listen to the voices of these in attendance, not as remarks, but as testimony to their ministries. Number two, resist the zero-sum game. Supporting a small community like Christians in Jerusalem is not at the expense of others. We must work with actors promoting free access to holy sites and freedom of worship to all. Rooting out radicalism must be at the forefront. Empower those who recognize and respect the sanctity of other traditions and spaces. I'm a child of Jerusalem. It was this mosaic that has led me on a path here before you today. Holy sites can be places of social cohesion when the end result is the flourishing of all, not a zero-sum game. To make that a reality, we must collaborate together at all levels, from the conference rooms in New York to parish churches in Bethlehem. This is the vision of Jerusalem present in my childhood. It is the vision we must continue to work towards together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nada Elias Mokhrabi. Be sure that we all feel city of Jerusalem, citizen of Jerusalem. We are with you. Thank you very much. So I give the floor to Elder Matthew Holland, Executive Director of the Communication Department, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. You have the floor.
Thank you. Distinguished host, fellow global faith leaders, and honorable United Nations organizers, it's a profound honor to be with you today at this gathering of great hearts and minds dedicated to the flourishing of faith, peace, and compassion around the world. For many of us, this means that we act as the reminders and guardians of the divine in our world. Such a duty stems from and helps unite the diverse traditions and beliefs represented at this gathering. Today's special session on safeguarding religious sites addresses a core element of this duty, which is to ensure that we protect and maintain those physical structures and symbols that hold the beating heart of our faith communities and direct us all to things higher, holier, and redemptive. In a world marked by rapid change, uncertainty, loneliness, division, and loss of faith, the importance of protecting our sacred spaces has never been greater. Sadly, in diverse locations today, many sacred spaces face grave threats. Physical destruction, whether it be from neglect, vandalism, or conflict, endangers these sites. This not only risks the loss of the great cultural and aesthetic value of the bricks and mortar in jeopardy, but also the greater spiritual and emotional value of these places made holy by their history and mission. Here I channel Bishop Wells to reference the story of Moses at the burning bush. As early as that ancient biblical story, God has been teaching us that there are places and spaces on this earth that should be treated with special reverence and care. This is true not because they have simply been built or simply exist, but because of what happens in and around them. Before Moses and the burning bush, that plot of land was just a dusty, unremarkable bit of mountain landscape. But as soon as Moses encountered and embraced the divine, it became holy, sacred, and worthy of respect. The places we seek to preserve today are like Moses' Mount Horeb, places that point humanity toward heaven and ground us in truth. They are sanctuaries where individuals and communities find peace, renewal, and purpose. They serve as beacons of light amid darkness. They are, in fact, places where the divine presence is encountered and embraced. And as the divine connects us to the Creator, it connects us to his other creations, namely each other. It does so with thoughts, feelings, and ideas that transcend language, culture, and circumstance. Within the beautiful walls of these holy places, one can see, hear, and feel that universal truth that we are all children of God, loved and valued with equal human dignity, a truth that breaks down other ugly walls of doubt and division. Thus, these places are holy indeed. As guardians of the divine and the custodians of these holy sites worldwide, including churches, mosques, temples, monasteries, statues, and shrines of many varieties, it's fitting, even necessary, that we gather today to assert that their safeguarding is crucial and work toward that end. Among other things, that means that we call upon governments, journalists, and tourists, and others to respect the sacredness and the access rules that a particular religion may impose upon its own sacred site and the ceremonial activity that goes with it. The work we do here today and beyond is a sacred duty we owe to God and each other. Individuals and nations need these sites more than they know. For in these sacred spaces rest moral and heavenly treasures that can best help heal, prosper, and redeem the world and the whole human family. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Elder Matthew Holland, Executive Director of Communication Department, the Church of Jesus Christ Latter-day Saints. Then I give the call to Venerable Li Guangfu, President of the Chinese Taoist Association.
Distinguished Mr. Martinez, distinguished delegates, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. First and foremost, on behalf of the World Taoism Council and Chinese Taoism Association, I'd like to provide my sincere gratitude for organizers of the following Congress, gratitude to Alliance of Civilization, to Secretariat of the World and Traditional Leaders for their huge contribution within the interfaith and interreligious harmony. I'd like to provide my sincere support for your wisdom, for such significance. The following Congress really important because we have the anniversary of the UN, and we provide such vital topics as the reservation of the safeguarding of the regional sites. Chinese part, Taoism Association, pays a huge attention to that and provides a huge provision. China is considered as the country of a huge number of religions, and government of China always protects the interests of all religious organizations by providing all appropriate legislation in terms of support, in terms of preservation and safeguarding of religious sites. We think that religious sites are not just spiritual places for believers, but also an important place, an important provider in terms of significant culture. This is the place of power, and this is the place of social harmony. And any acts of violence, distractions, abuse towards sites have to be considered as the violence of the whole humanity, and we fully condemn it, and we are being totally against such actions. In China, we have a clear legislative basis for reservation of sites, and a special legislative rules, programs that leads to comprehensive protection, preservation, provision of security of religious sites. Religious organizations also taken active participation in terms of that by sticking to all the appropriate legislation. The government of China also provides all regulative basis, attracting religious organizations to work together to preserve religious culture, to provide various types of funds. And within the example of Taoism, we actively provide a concept of ecological, and we also pay a huge attention not only to material protection of such places, but also cultural functions and social values. A huge number of Taoism churches are considered not also as sites or religious centers, but also considered as the sources of the whole Chinese culture and tourist attractions. We strengthen the link of sites between people by providing for funds, exhibitions, in order to raise the level of knowledge between people and stimulate the participation within the following process of reservation of religious sites. We firmly believe and support all that key measures and procedures of the UN in terms of preservation of cultural, religious sites. As for provision of security of such places, we also invite international organizations to jointly fight against the violations and abuse towards sites. Taoism Association is ready to provide and share its experience within the integration with international organization by actively providing 4 global initiatives that were mentioned and provided by the state of China. In conclusion, I'd like to say that preservation of sites is not only responsibility of government, but of the whole population, of the whole world. religious leaders have to be crucial actors within the following procedure by staying against the extremism, by fighting against the violations, and Taos Islamization will be strengthening its ties with international structures, jointly preserving the whole world. Thank you so much for your attention.
Taoist Association. Now I give the floor to Dr. Enrico Molinaro. Try to be as brief as you can, no more than 3 minutes, 4 minutes.
I'll ask the help of all these enlightened religious leaders because I have to do this miracle, and I thank Ambassador Moratinos to give me the floor, concluding, like in Cascais Global Forum, this session. So the miracle is to give you something practical, concrete, as a proposal in 3 minutes. It's really a mission impossible. I need all your prayers. But I have some tricks, because Ambassador Moratino is going to send you this document. These are the recommendations from the chair on safeguarding religious sites. There is the list of legal obligations on the holy sites as a result of a legal study of 15 seminars behind closed doors, not only interfaith seminars, but even with Palestinian and Israelis, so people in conflict. And the second trick I have is that you will receive a copy of my paper where I explain from the legal point of view in international law why there are some basic principles obliging the parties. So why me? Because I'm Italian, but Italy has something similar to Kazakhstan. Because, you know, there were no terror attacks based on fundamentalist religions, from radical religions. I think it's not by chance. I think Kazakhstan is doing an incredible job, even this conference today in such a difficult political moment. We in Italy, we have the example of St. Francis of Assisi in the dialogue with the Muslim community, and we have the example of the former Mayor of Florence, Giorgio Lapira, who made the Mediterranean colloquia with Jewish, Muslim, and Christian leaders in order to find, behind closed doors, some practical solutions. I believe one possible practical proposal could be from Ambassador Moratinos, the idea of a high-level committee, of which the UNAOC could be the secretary, because what is implicit or explicit today is that the connection of the holy place, of any religious sites, is collective identity. This is a social anthropological concept that I will elaborate in 2 days in the roundtable on the 18th. But it's essential education, as many of you said, on the concept of identity, mutual respect. So identity is not a weapon, a political weapon to manipulate and to attack people, but can be the basis of a new dialogue. Thank you.
Make a miracle. And thank you, Enrico, for your contribution and support. I will distribute at the end, in the concluding remark, these principles. But before we enter to the final session of this meeting, let's give the floor to the representative of His Virtue, Sheikh Alam Islam Pasasade. They want to make some clarification about one intervention has been made in this meeting.
Thank you, Your Excellency. Distinguished participants, I am the Vice Chairman of the Caucasus Muslims Board, Deputy of His Virtue Sheikhul Islam Allah Shkur Pashazadeh. And we must to ask this floor because one of the speakers did try to give you untrue information about the current situation in my country. As you know, the subject of this session is safeguarding of the religious sites. This is the duty of all religious figures and the policymakers. But most important duty of the religious figures, I mean, this is the safeguard of the peace processes. These processes which is now
we are watching, and we are very shocked and very surprised when the Reverend Dr. Wells, she tried to put the fire to the former conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan. We know that the information based on the lie propaganda by the Armenian church. And therefore, I remind that the conflict between Armenia and Azerbaijan began in 1988 with the withdrawal of the 250,000 Azerbaijanis from their own territories. All our cemeteries, all our religious sites, all our mosques in the territory of Armenia were destroyed totally. Then in 1993, Armenia occupied 20% of the territories of Azerbaijan. Now, after the peace process which began, and you saw once months ago, the Armenian Prime Minister and the President of Azerbaijan signed the joint declaration with the participation of the Mr. President Trump about the peace. This speech destroyed all the peace process. In our Karabakh territory, we had 67 mosques, 65 of them destroyed totally by Armenians. Only 2 they kept. Why? I can say you, because as you know, minarets of the mosques very tall, and they used it for the fighting, as a fighting point for the snipers. They kept the animals in our mosques. They kept the pigs in our mosques, which is haram for Islam, for all Islamic world. Therefore, I am asking you, dear Miss Wells, be very careful and don't involve and disturb the peace process. Because now the people and believers, religious people, everybody wants the peace between 2 countries. Thank you very much. Thank you, Your Excellency.
Thank you. Yes, I was to say to add only, this conference is a conference to build the future. And I have to tell the Reverend to support what our friend from Azerbaijan have said. Because, you know, my dear colleague, you know, Azerbaijan, Karabakh now, is working with the UN, with Alliance of Civilization, in order to protect religious sites, with support and engagement also of the Armenian government. So we are looking to the future, and we are engaged to protect not all kind of Armenian religious sites, but all kind of religions in Azerbaijan, that include Karabakh. So with that, I give the floor to my colleague, you know, Mr. Akan, Vice Minister of Kazakhstan, to make the first comment, and then I will make my same. Thank you.
Thank you, Excellency, Mr. High Representative for the United Nations Alliance of Civilizations, the Excellencies, Eminence, distinguished participants. I believe that despite the final, some not very pleasant point, but I think we remained very committed to the subject of today's discussion, and we are very pleased to gather such a authoritative gathering and audience here. And as we heard today, over the past decades, the international community has witnessed a disturbing rise in violence targeting places of worship Attacks on mosques, churches, synagogues, temples, and other sacred sites, whether in the Middle East, Asia, Africa, Europe, and the Americas, are not only assaults on physical structures, but on the very soul of communities. As highlighted in the UN Secretary General's report and Secretary General Assembly's resolutions, this act seeks to sow fear, incite cycles of violence, and erase collective identities. Today's special session, along with the valuable thoughts and ideas of the distinguished participants, filled with faith in dialogue, respect, and shared aspiration for peace, resonates deeply with our collective duty to preserve sacred spaces as symbol of identity, heritage, and humanity, shared spiritual legacy. Our discussions have highlighted the urgent need for cooperative efforts, respect for religious diversity, and the implementation of robust measures to ensure these sites remain sanctuaries of peace and reverence for present and future generations. As we conclude this special session on safeguarding the religious site, we reaffirm our collective commitment to protecting these sacred spaces that hold deep spiritual, cultural, and historical significance. I would like to express sincere appreciation for the active participation and thoughtful contribution of all participants. Your engagement, dedication, willingness to share insights have enriched our dialogue and strengthened our resolve to work collaboratively. Let us carry forward the insights gained here today with a shared sense of responsibility to uphold dignity, harmony, and mutual respect across faith. Thank you all for your valuable contributions and dedications to this vital cause. Dear colleagues, we look forward to welcoming you tomorrow at the official opening of the VIII Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. I thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Akam. Let me say a few words, very short, because we are 10 minutes late of our schedule. My first words are of recognition and gratitude to all of you. I think we have had a very intense and very productive sessions. I think we all agree, and all intervention agree, that the protection of religious sites should be a collective responsibility. There will be no tolerance about violation, attack, undermining any religious site. Number two, I think there has been, of course, extremely concern of all of us of the situation of religious sites in times of wars and conflict. And we all have, in our mind, today's situation in the Middle East, particularly in Gaza and other places. And I really appreciate the presence of the Israeli rabbis, both of them, that came us and said a very, very clear word. They are also against any violation, attack, or of destruction of religious site. I encourage both of you. I'm a friend of you. I remember Rabbi Obadiah Joseph. I met him several times in my time of EU Special Envoy. I have a great admiration, and we work together. He was a man of peace, a man of reconciliation. I want you to talk to your people in Israel and try to understand what we have all agreed, because it's needed. It's absolutely needed that we preserve religious sites in this conflict. But we have to take some specific measure, because we all agree, but unfortunately when war is there, there is destruction and there is casualties. So we should think about how to really, in time of conflict, to make a specific protection to religious sites. Thirdly, in the presentation, Dr. Nihal, you remember you saw this mapping in Sweden. And you saw that it's practically with small lights where are the religious sites. Can you imagine if the UN and myself, my office, could present to the whole international community a map of the world with all these lights. What will it mean? Being a Christian, Muslim, Hindu, Buddhist, that spirituality means a lot in today's world. How many sides do you think there are in the world? Religious sites. 5 million? 10 millions? We all know. But you can imagine, you see the world illuminated, like Sweden is illuminated. So I encourage member states and countries to help us to monitor and to map in religious sites. It's not just to identify whether they're Muslims or they Sikhs or they're Christians. No, it's just to really show this political message, this spiritual message of importance of spirituality. Finally, I just distribute this recommendation. I don't want to enter in a drafting, but look at them. There has been other exercise. Dr. Curias, Francis Curias, have in the Religion for Peace some guidelines. We have to be inspired, but in the future follow-up, I think we have to be pragmatic and we have to be, specific and practical. So I really thank the Kazakhstan government to allow us to really have this session. I think it has been very, very fruitful, all of us. It's only the beginning, but we have to be in this commitment to make things better. And you will be invited again. Now we will have a Global Forum the Alliance in Riyadh at the end of December, 15 of December. And we hope that we will have a follow-up presenting the conclusion of today. So if you have some comment on the recommendation, please send us. And if you have new ideas, please share with us. So thank you again, and thank you for having this opportunity to share constructive views about how to protect religious sites today and tomorrow. Thank you very much.